There is only one person I must change in order to change my entire world. Myself. For so long I looked outward. I looked at circumstances. I looked at people. I looked at money. I looked at opportunities. I looked at everything happening around me, wondering what needed to change before I could finally become happy. But now I understand. The world I experience is reflecting the state I occupy within myself. Therefore, if I desire a different world, I must first become different within. I do not begin with circumstances. I begin with I am. Those two words are among the most powerful words I will ever speak. For whatever I attach to I am, I accept as an identity. If I continually say, I am struggling, I am unwanted, I am overlooked, I am unlucky, I am always behind, I am never chosen, then I am not merely describing circumstances. I am accepting a state, and once I accept that state as myself, I begin seeing evidence of it everywhere. But the beautiful truth is this: I can choose again. I can withdraw my attention from the person I no longer desire to be, and place it upon the person I desire to become. So today, I make a new declaration. I am successful. I am prosperous. I am loved. I am chosen. I am respected. I am confident. I am secure. I am worthy. I am fulfilled. I am the person who has it all. Not because I need to convince the world, not because I am pretending, but because I understand that every transformation begins with a transformation of identity. I must become inwardly what I desire to experience outwardly. If I desire love, I become the person who knows I am loved. If I desire wealth, I become the person who knows I am prosperous. If I desire respect, I become the person who respects myself. If I desire success, I stop identifying as the person desperately trying to become successful. I assume success as my natural state. This is the secret. I do not chase the things I desire. I become the person to whom those things naturally belong. I ask myself, who would I be if I already had the life I desire? How would I think? How would I walk? What would I expect? What conversations would I have within myself? Would I constantly worry that everything was about to disappear? Would I compare myself to everyone around me? Would I beg to be chosen? Would I chase approval? Would I wake every morning wondering whether I was enough? No. If I truly knew who I was, there would be a quiet certainty within me. I would know, and that knowing would change everything. So I practice that knowing now. I stop waiting for the world to give me confidence. I give confidence to myself. I stop waiting for another person to tell me I am valuable. I recognize my own value. I stop waiting for circumstances to tell me I am successful. I assume success. I stop waiting for money to tell me I am prosperous. I become prosperous in consciousness first. For if I require external evidence before I change my conception of myself, I will remain imprisoned by appearances. I must dare to become the new person before the evidence arrives. This is where transformation begins. Perhaps yesterday I doubted myself. That was yesterday. Perhaps yesterday I accepted less than I desired. That was yesterday. Perhaps yesterday I believed I had to prove my worth. That was yesterday. Perhaps yesterday I allowed rejection, disappointment, or failure to define me. That was yesterday. Today I choose differently. I do not carry yesterday's identity into today's imagination. I release it, and whenever the old voice returns and says, "But this is who you have always been," I answer, "No, that is who I was. This is who I am," and I remain faithful to my new identity. I understand that the old state may attempt to reclaim my attention. Old thoughts may appear. Old fears may appear. Old memories may appear. But their appearance does not mean I must accept them. A thought can knock at the door without being invited inside. So I become selective. I choose the thoughts that belong to the person I desire to be. I choose the inner conversations that agree with my new identity. I choose the assumptions that belong to fulfillment. And little by little, the new state becomes natural. Then something remarkable begins to happen. I stop trying to become the person who has it all. I begin knowing that I already am. Once I change my conception of myself, I stop looking outward every moment to see whether the world has noticed. I know that it will. I do not plant a seed and dig it up every morning to check whether it is growing. I plant it, I nourish it, and I trust the process. My new self-concept is the seed. Persistence is how I nourish it, and my world is the harvest. Therefore I persist, not anxiously, not desperately, not by repeating words while secretly fearing the opposite. I persist by returning again and again to the identity I have chosen. I am the person who is loved. I am the person who is chosen. I am the person who prospers. I am the person who succeeds. I am the person opportunities find. I am the person others respect. I am the person who walks into a room knowing my value. I am the person who expects life to work beautifully. And I notice something. When I change the way I see myself, I naturally begin changing the way I interpret everything around me. I no longer see one closed door and conclude that I am a failure. I no longer see someone's rejection and conclude that I am unwanted. I no longer see a temporary financial problem and conclude that I am poor. I no longer allow temporary circumstances to become permanent identities. Circumstances change, states change, conditions change, but I decide who I am. That power belongs to me. And because I decide who I am, I become less reactive. I do not need everyone to behave perfectly for me to remain secure. I do not need constant reassurance. I do not need to chase. I do not need to prove. I do not need to force. I know who I am. There is tremendous freedom in those words. I know who I am. If someone fails to recognize my value, I do not reduce my value. If one opportunity disappears, I do not conclude that opportunity has abandoned me. If something takes longer than expected, I do not return to the identity of failure. I remain faithful, because my self-concept is no longer determined by individual events. Individual events are temporary. My assumption of myself is the cause from which new events will grow. So I ask myself to imagine one simple scene, a scene that would be natural if I truly were the person who has it all. Perhaps I see myself sitting peacefully in a beautiful place. Perhaps I hear someone say, "You have created such an incredible life." And perhaps I simply smile. Because to the new me, this life is no longer surprising. It feels natural. I feel the security. I feel the peace. I feel the abundance. I feel the love. I feel the confidence. Not excitement because something impossible finally happened. Naturalness because this is simply who I am. That feeling of naturalness is powerful, for when my desired life stops feeling foreign to me, I have begun accepting it as mine. I no longer place it upon a pedestal. I no longer look at the life I desire and say, maybe someday. Someday keeps fulfillment in the future. I choose now. I am prosperous now. I am loved now. I am worthy now. I am secure now. I am successful now. I am enough now. And I allow circumstances to catch up with the identity I have accepted. I do not need to know exactly how they will change. I do not need to orchestrate every event. I do not need to control every person. My task is simpler. I change myself, and my world must follow. So tonight, before I sleep, I will not review every mistake I made today. I will not rehearse rejection. I will not replay conversations that wounded me. I will not carry disappointment into sleep and plant it again in imagination. Instead, I will remember the person I have chosen to be. I will see myself as fulfilled. I will feel myself secure. I will imagine myself loved. I will experience myself prosperous. And perhaps I will hear the words, "Look at your life now." And I will answer, "I always knew it would become this." Then I will rest. And tomorrow I will rise from the same identity. I will not wake up and ask, "Has anything changed yet?" I have changed. Therefore the most important change has already occurred. I will walk through the day as the new person. I will think from the new person. I will expect from the new person. And when the old identity attempts to return, I will not fight it. I simply choose again. I return to I am. I am blessed. I am loved. I am beautiful. I am valuable. I am respected. I am prosperous. I am successful. I am secure. I am confident. I am wanted. I am chosen. I am fulfilled. I am living a life that once existed only within my imagination. And I am grateful. I no longer ask the mirror to smile first. I smile. I no longer demand that the reflection change before I change the image. I change the image. I change the conception I hold of myself. I change the conversations I entertain within. I change the assumptions I continually return to. And then I watch as the reflection begins to change. People respond differently. Opportunities appear differently. I carry myself differently. I recognize possibilities I once overlooked. I expect more because I have stopped identifying with less. And eventually the world that once seemed to contradict me begins confirming what I already knew. That is when others may say, "You changed," and I smile, because they are correct. I did change. I changed before they saw it. I changed before circumstances confirmed it. I changed within, and everything else followed. So from this moment forward, I refuse to define myself by what appears before me. I define myself by what I have consciously chosen to be. I am not waiting to become worthy. I am worthy. I am not waiting to become successful. I am successful. I am not waiting to become loved. I am loved. I am not waiting for my life to begin. I am living it now. This is my new conception of myself. This is the state I choose. This is the identity I accept, and I remain faithful to it. For when I change myself, my world must change. When I change the conception of I am, the reflection must eventually conform. And so I say with certainty, I am the person who has it all. I do not chase my desired life. I become the person for whom that life is natural. I accept it. I feel it. I live from it, and I allow my world to follow. There was a time when I constantly looked for evidence. I would make an assumption and immediately turn toward the world to see whether anything had changed. I would imagine abundance and then look at my circumstances. I would imagine love and then examine the behavior of another. I would imagine success and then search for evidence that success was approaching. And without realizing it, I was revealing where my faith truly rested. I claimed to believe in imagination, but I continued asking appearances for permission to believe. Now I understand. If I must see it before I believe it, then I am allowing the outer world to determine my inner state. But creation works in the opposite direction. I choose the state first. I accept it first. I experience it inwardly first, and then I allow the evidence to appear. Therefore, I no longer wake each morning searching for proof. I wake remembering who I am. I do not ask, has anything happened? I ask, who am I today? And the answer remains the same. I am the person I have chosen to be. I am successful. I am loved. I am secure. I am prosperous. I am respected. I am fulfilled. I am living from the state of completion. Whether the world confirms it this morning or tomorrow does not change my identity. I do not change who I am every time circumstances change. That would make me a servant of appearances. Instead, I remain faithful to myself. This is where so many people surrender their desired state. They imagine something beautiful. For a moment they feel it. For a moment they believe. Then they open their eyes and ask, where is it? They look around. Nothing appears different, and immediately they return to the old state. They say, "It didn't work." But what did they truly accept? They accepted the evidence of their senses more deeply than the evidence of imagination. I refuse to make that mistake. I understand that there can be an interval between an inner change and its complete outward expression. That interval does not frighten me. I know what I have accepted. If I plant a seed beneath the earth, I do not call it dead because I cannot see it. Something is happening beyond my sight. In the same way, once I change my assumption, I allow the unseen arrangement of circumstances to unfold. I do not need to interfere. I do not need to force. I do not need to continually ask how. I simply remain faithful. Suppose I desire greater prosperity. I do not spend the entire day asking where the money will come from. That question belongs to the person who does not have it. Instead, I ask, how does prosperity feel? How does security feel? How does freedom feel? And I occupy those feelings. Perhaps prosperity feels like peace. Perhaps it feels like relief. Perhaps it feels like walking into a store without fear. Perhaps it feels like opening a bill and knowing it is easily handled. Perhaps it feels like generosity. Perhaps it feels like knowing that there is always enough and more than enough. Then I practice that state, not because I am denying appearances, but because I refuse to allow temporary appearances to determine permanent identity. The same applies to love. If I desire to be deeply loved, I stop checking whether someone has demonstrated enough love today. I become the person who knows, I am lovable, I am cherished, I am wanted, I am valued. Love is natural to me. I do not beg for affection. I do not chase attention. I do not measure my worth by someone's temporary behavior. I establish my worth within myself. And when I truly know my value, I begin experiencing relationships from an entirely different state. The same applies to success. I stop asking, when will someone finally recognize me? I recognize myself. I stop asking, when will my opportunity arrive? I become the person for whom opportunity is natural. I stop saying, maybe one day I will succeed. I say, success belongs to the state I occupy now. I am successful. Then I move through the world from that identity. My decisions begin changing. My expectations begin changing. My reactions begin changing. My inner conversations begin changing. And inevitably my experiences begin changing. This is why self-concept is so powerful. I am not merely trying to manifest individual objects. I am changing the source from which thousands of experiences arise. When I change the root, I do not need to paint every leaf. The entire tree changes. So I work upon the root. I am. Who am I? That is the question. Not, what happened yesterday? Not, what does someone think about me? Not, what does my bank account say? Not, what does the world predict? Who am I? I decide, and then I remain loyal to that decision. I no longer seek proof. I become the proof. My peace is proof. My certainty is proof. My changed inner conversations are proof. My refusal to return to the old identity is proof. The outer evidence will come, but by the time it comes, it will only confirm something I already knew. I am changed, and because I am changed, my world is already changing. All day long, I am having conversations that no one else can hear. I speak to myself about my life. I speak to myself about other people. I speak to myself about money. I speak to myself about my future. I speak to myself about who I am. And these inner conversations reveal the state I occupy. Therefore, I listen. What am I saying when nobody else is listening? Am I rehearsing arguments? Am I imagining rejection? Am I explaining why things never work for me? Am I predicting disappointment? Am I repeating something painful that happened years ago? Am I silently defending myself against people who are not even present? If so, I understand that I am continuing an old story within imagination, and I can stop. I do not condemn myself. I simply become aware. Awareness gives me choice. The moment I hear myself returning to an old inner conversation, I can change it. Perhaps I once imagined someone criticizing me. Now I hear them praising me. Perhaps I once imagined someone rejecting me. Now I hear myself being valued. Perhaps I repeatedly told myself, I never have enough. Now I hear, I always have more than enough. Perhaps I once said, nothing works for me. Now I say, things have a remarkable way of working in my favor. I begin changing the atmosphere within myself, and I notice how different life feels when my inner world is no longer hostile toward me. I become my own greatest ally. I speak to myself as the person I desire to be. I say, look how far I have come. Look how beautifully things are unfolding. Look how much I have grown. Look at the opportunities appearing. Look at the abundance surrounding me. Look at the love within my life. Everything is working together beautifully. My future is secure. My life is expanding. Wonderful things are happening for me. And as these conversations become natural, my identity changes. I no longer feel like someone attempting to escape an unwanted life. I feel like someone experiencing a beautiful life. That distinction changes everything, for I do not want to spend my imagination fighting against what I dislike. I want to inhabit what I love. Therefore, I stop giving so much attention to what I am trying to leave behind. I turn toward where I am going. If I desire abundance, I talk inwardly from abundance. If I desire love, I talk inwardly from love. If I desire peace, I speak from peace. If I desire success, I speak as one who knows success. I do not need elaborate scenes. Sometimes a single sentence is enough. Isn't it wonderful? Everything worked out. I am so grateful. I knew this would happen. My life has changed completely. I have more than enough. I am deeply loved. I am finally living the life I imagined. These simple inner statements can imply an entire world. I allow them to become familiar. Then, when circumstances attempt to draw me into the old conversation, I refuse the invitation. I do not need to mentally argue with the problem. I return to the solution. I do not rehearse lack. I return to abundance. I do not rehearse loneliness. I return to love. I do not rehearse failure. I return to accomplishment. I do not rehearse fear. I return to security. Again and again I choose the conversation belonging to the fulfilled state, and I understand that I do not need perfection. If I notice an unwanted thought, I have not ruined anything. I simply choose again. That is my power. I can always choose again. One thought does not define me. One bad morning does not define me. One fearful moment does not define me. My dominant state matters. The home to which I continually return within myself matters, and I have chosen my home. Fulfillment. That is where I live now. So I guard my inner conversations not with fear, but with love. I choose thoughts worthy of the person I have decided to become. I speak inwardly as though my prayer has already been answered, and eventually the conversations I once imagined become conversations I actually experience. What was once heard only within is heard without. What was once seen only within becomes visible. And when that happens, I recognize it. The world has echoed the conversation I first held within myself. There is another step in becoming the person who has it all. I must be willing to release the person who did not. Sometimes I say I desire a new life, while remaining emotionally loyal to the old identity. I continue telling the same stories. I continue remembering the same wounds. I continue describing myself through old disappointments. I continue introducing myself inwardly as the person who was hurt, rejected, overlooked, betrayed, defeated, or deprived. And then I wonder why the new state feels difficult to maintain. I cannot continually feed two identities and expect one to disappear. At some point I choose. Who am I? I am not asking what happened to me. Something may have happened. It may have been painful. It may have been unfair. It may have changed the direction of my life for a time. But an event is not an identity. A chapter is not the entire book. I refuse to make a permanent home inside a temporary experience. So I release the person I used to be. I thank that version of myself for carrying me this far. But I do not need to remain there. I no longer introduce myself to myself through pain. I introduce myself through possibility. I am renewed. I am free. I am wiser. I am stronger. I am peaceful. I am secure. I am capable. I am worthy of beautiful experiences. I am available for a completely different life. And I allow the old identity to become unfamiliar. Perhaps I used to expect disappointment. Now disappointment feels foreign to my new state. Perhaps I used to expect people to leave. Now I expect healthy, loving relationships. Perhaps I used to believe money disappeared as quickly as it arrived. Now I expect abundance to remain, grow, and circulate. Perhaps I used to believe success belonged to other people. Now I see success as completely natural for me. This does not happen because I punish the old self. It happens because I stop feeding it. Whatever I continually give attention to grows in my awareness. Therefore, I become conscious of where I place my attention. When an old memory appears, I ask, does this belong to the person I am becoming? If not, I do not need to dwell there. I can revise it. I can reinterpret it. I can release it. I can say, that was then, this is now, and now I know who I am. I refuse to use yesterday as evidence against tomorrow. Tomorrow has not yet been written in physical experience. Therefore, why would I write it using yesterday's disappointments? I write from fulfillment. I write from freedom. I write from the identity I have consciously selected. There is a version of me who wakes without carrying yesterday. I become that person. There is a version of me who looks into the future with excitement rather than fear. I become that person. There is a version of me who knows that love, abundance, opportunity, peace, and success are natural. I become that person, and I do it now. I do not wait until the world gives me a reason. My new identity is the reason. I am the cause. My world is the effect. This means I am free. I do not need permission from my history to create a new future. I do not need agreement from anyone else. I do not need someone who knew the old me to understand the new me. They may remember me differently. That is their memory. I know who I am now. And eventually they too must encounter the version of me that I continually occupy. So I stop trying to convince people that I have changed. I simply changed. I stop announcing my transformation. I live it. I stop defending my worth. I embody it. I stop explaining why I deserve more. I accept more inwardly. And I become comfortable with being new. Sometimes the old identity feels safe, simply because it is familiar. But familiar does not mean true. Familiar does not mean permanent. Familiar does not mean I must remain there. I can make fulfillment familiar. I can make confidence familiar. I can make abundance familiar. I can make being loved familiar. I can make peace familiar. I can make success familiar. Through repeated occupancy, the new state becomes home. And one day I realize I no longer have to remind myself constantly who I am. I know. The new identity has become natural. The person I once tried to become is simply the person I am. Now I reach a place beyond striving. I have changed my conception of myself. I have changed my inner conversations. I have released my dependence upon external proof. I have loosened my attachment to the old identity. And now there is something left for me to do. Expect good. I expect my life to be beautiful. Not because every moment must be perfect. Not because nothing unexpected will ever happen. But because I have chosen the assumption that life works in my favor. I expect solutions. I expect opportunities. I expect love. I expect abundance. I expect kindness. I expect success. I expect doors to open. I expect the right ideas to come. I expect circumstances to rearrange themselves in ways that support the state I have chosen. Expectation is powerful because it reveals what I truly consider natural. If someone tells me that something wonderful is coming, and my immediate reaction is disbelief, I discover something about my state. But I can change it. I can make good news natural. I can make receiving natural. I can make prosperity natural. I can make love natural. I can make success natural. I can become the person who hears wonderful news and thinks, of course, why wouldn't something wonderful happen to me? I am blessed. Why wouldn't opportunities appear? I am successful. Why wouldn't I experience beautiful relationships? I am loved. Why wouldn't abundance increase? I am prosperous. Why wouldn't my life improve? Improvement is natural to me. This is not arrogance. It is identity. I am no longer making myself small so that disappointment cannot find me. I am no longer lowering expectations because I am afraid to desire. I permit myself to expect more from life. I permit myself to imagine beautifully. I permit myself to desire greatly, and then I accept the fulfillment of those desires within. There is no virtue in imagining the worst. There is no wisdom in continually preparing myself for disappointment. If imagination is creative, then I choose to use it lovingly. I imagine the best. I expect the best. I become familiar with the best. When I think of my future, I see light. When I think of my finances, I feel security. When I think of love, I feel cherished. When I think of my work, I feel accomplishment. When I think of my home, I feel peace. When I think of myself, I feel pride in the person I have become. My inner world becomes beautiful. And because I live there first, I know that my outer world cannot remain untouched. I do not know exactly what tomorrow will bring. I do not need to know. But I know who enters tomorrow. I do, and I know who I am. I am the person who expects solutions. I am the person who finds doors where others see walls. I am the person who rises. I am the person who receives. I am the person who prospers. I am the person who loves and is loved. I am the person who lives with purpose. I am the person who knows that imagination is a creative power. Therefore, I use it wisely. Tonight, I close my eyes and see myself at some point in the future. Perhaps a year has passed. Perhaps several years have passed. I look around at my life. So much has changed. Things that once worried me have been resolved. Desires that once seemed distant have become ordinary parts of my life. Doors opened, people appeared, circumstances changed. I changed. And in imagination I look back upon this present moment. I smile. I remember the moment when I decided that I would no longer accept the old conception of myself. I remember deciding, I am the person who has it all. And now, from that future state, I say to myself, you were right to believe. You were right to persist. You were right to stop judging your future by your past. You were right to change yourself first. Everything followed. I feel those words. I allow them to become real. Then I return to the present carrying the feeling of that future fulfillment with me. I do not have to wait years to experience that state. I can experience it now. That is the miracle of imagination. I can occupy inwardly what has not yet become visible outwardly. And by repeatedly occupying it, I make it natural. So this is where I remain. I expect good. I expect growth. I expect expansion. I expect beautiful surprises. I expect my life to continue becoming greater than anything I previously imagined. And most importantly, I expect these things not because I am trying to earn them. I expect them because I have changed the person who is doing the expecting. I know who I am. I am worthy. I am chosen. I am loved. I am prosperous. I am successful. I am secure. I am confident. I am peaceful. I am fulfilled. I am grateful. I am living from the state of the wish fulfilled. And I am the person who has it all. I no longer chase the reflection. I change the image. I no longer beg circumstances to improve. I improve the conception I hold of myself. I no longer wait for the world to tell me who I am. I tell the world who I am through the state I continually occupy. And now I walk forward, expecting the reflection to follow. Because I changed the cause. I changed the assumption. I changed the identity. I changed I am. And when I change I am, everything that flows from I am must eventually change with me. So I walk forward peacefully. I walk forward confidently. I walk forward expecting good. The old identity is behind me. The new identity is mine. I do not need to become it tomorrow. I am it now, and that is enough. I am the person who has it all. I am living from fulfillment. I am expecting a beautiful life, and the world must follow.